Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung. On this week's episode, we'll recap our week in Fab, including Dusk Till Dawn pre-releases, an update to the Living Legend status, and a major change in the Fab policy and procedures guideline. So, Felix, can you share some of your Dusk Till Dawn experience with us?
Yeah, so that happened a couple weeks ago at this point, and it was a lot of fun to be able to draft Monarch. I missed Monarch. I was one of those people that didn't really get to experience a lot of draft Monarch. We've done it a couple times just for fun over our armories over the last couple years, but it was never relevant. But now it is because of Nationals, and man, that is a fun set. Like every hero has some busted stuff to do. It was also really great to see people come out that I don't normally see come out. We have some people actually that only come out for pre-release events, and I met quite a few new people over the weekend. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was one of those people that didn't win one of my events, despite going to three of them. Looking at Twitter, it seemed like everyone was a six-time winner of their pre-releases. But I'm here to report that not everyone is a six-time winner. I went 2-1, I think, in all three tries I had, but I had an amazing time. How about you?
Nice. This was something that I was thinking about the other day that it's really important that I wanted to bring up our, I guess, play as well as luck with opening stuff. Like you said, you touched on that people on Twitter or social media, Discord, wherever, everybody else's luck seems to be amazing. And it really feeds into that confirmation bias that people only post good things and nobody ever posts or talks about stuff that doesn't go mega well or super great box opening. Like you, I went 2-1 on Friday. Saturday, I had a really good draft. I started drafting Prism. Look, I get it. Prism is really easy to draft, but nobody at the table was drafting Prism for the first few cards, so I jumped into her, and I actually had a really good deck that Saturday, but I was also on call, and at the start of round 2, I got called to go to work, so I was unable to finish that event. I also was unable to capture a CF hero for the weekend, and I did open up some product as well. I didn't open up a lot, but in what I did open, I didn't get a single legendary, not even an RF. And I was watching people open 3 legendaries in like a box and a Marvel Angel. It felt a little bad, but I think I got a regular run, and sometimes it happens. And I just want people to know that if you didn't get Mega Spice, it's okay. Like it happens to all of us. We don't always get the lucky hits. And honestly, I was actually really upset over that week, like not getting a hero despite going to a bunch of events, not getting good pulls when watching everybody around me pull fire. I was really disheartened and really upset. And I think I actually probably let it show to too many people. And I'm not proud of myself for like that behavior. And I had to take a step back and like just reassess that it's okay. It happens. And, it's not the greatest, but that was my week for the Dusk Till Dawn pre-release weekend.
Wow. No, I mean, thank you so much for sharing a lot of that, Shay. I was out of town, just on an airplane, like I am quite often on Sunday, so I missed seeing you on that last day of pre-releases. But I think that message is really important. At the end of the day, when I think about something like a pre-release event, I more or less consider myself a 1 in 32 shot at winning any given prize. And you think about it, if it's a 32 person event, there's 4 prizes. 1 in 8 are going to win something. So I don't think people should go into these events expecting to clean up and win everything. It's just not in the cards, right? And same thing for opening fire, like you said. I mean, we can just look at the distributions. Like for every fire box that people post, I do ask, how many dud boxes are there behind it? I mean, once in a while, people will post their dud boxes like, oh, woe is me. I only got 5 Majestics and nothing real good out of this one. But those aren't the types of photos that get upvotes and a lot of engagement. And I think we see this when it comes to different segments of society. We see this when it comes to different people. Like you take a look at your friends on social media. It seems like someone's on vacation all the time because people take a lot of photos when they're on
Yeah.
vacation.
Yep.
And if you take a look at 10 friends and they're all on vacation 1 week, then you're getting bombarded by beautiful photos 10 weeks out of the summer. That seems like you're the only one missing out. But in reality, you're just seeing everyone's highlight reels, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
it's a huge, powerful message,
Yeah.
and really thank you for sharing that.
And it's funny too. I was so even now I forgot. I was so bent out of shape about not getting anything good and watching other people do really well that even on one of the days that on the day I left early, I got 2 prize packs, and I did actually pull a Levia redeemed legendary,
Ooh,
and I should be happy with that. But I was so um, inundated with like worrying about what other people were doing and what I wasn't getting that I even forget that I even pulled a legendary out of 1 out of 2 packs. So I should
yeah.
be happy, but it's just sort of like too much negativity. And so, yeah, I really want to change my outlook and reassess that not worry about it so much. Right. Like I was hoping that I would get a CF the weekend because I was attending so many events that I'm like, there's a chance that I get it. And I think I propped myself up too much for it. And this is sort of a repercussion for that. So,
Well, no. Again, thank you so much for
yeah.
sharing that because these emotions are normal.
Mhm.
There's no shame in it. But the important thing is how do you acknowledge it and overcome it. And I mean, the first step is acknowledging it, right? And
Yeah.
accepting it. And yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to cover about pre-release and release weekends?
Yeah, I just read an article that there were what 16,000 or 17,000 unique participants during all of these pre-releases, and I'm blown away by
Yeah.
the fact that so many people showed up. I mean, this is a draft event for Monarch, and maybe on the face of it, you might think that that's not as appealing as a sealed event for a brand new set where there's 6 packs of a new set. Available to participants. But you know, despite some murmurings leading up to the events, and you know, there were some people that were very happy to get a Monarch draft, but then other people that may have been like, "LOL, Monarch draft." You know, the warehouses are being cleaned out of all
Yeah.
the extra Monarch Unlimited. That there was a little bit of an undercurrent of that you know I saw because now I'm part of the internet and social media.
Yeah.
So it's an
Which is
unfortunate side effect.
it is, but it's also funny. Like this is a supplemental set. We don't
Yeah.
normally get to do draft during supplemental sets. So this was I thought a really good idea. Even if it is clearing out the warehouse stock, I like that we were able to do pre-release events for supplemental set because it's not something that we're usually able to do in Fab.
Yeah, exactly. Any excuse to play Fab
Yeah.
and get a sneak peek of new cards. Like if they said, you know, for the next supplemental set, the pre-release format is Chaff Goblin and we get to play with 60 cracked baubles and one wounding blow, I'm in. Come on, like
Yeah, absolutely.
let's go.
Yeah. And I hope they actually start to do more stuff like that, maybe with more pre-releases or even just other ideas. Like we're kind of seeing it in skirmish season. They're changing the way that Blitz works during skirmish season 7. So I hope they keep doing more things to keep the game interesting instead of just these 2 or these 3 static formats that we kind of have right now.
Yeah, but overall, I had a lot of fun. On the weekend, I did pick up a couple boxes when I was on the road. After spending the week at work at my site on the East Coast, I went over to Victoria on the literal opposite side of Canada and visited a LGS there. Picked up a couple boxes, opened some stuff, and picked up some boxes at home as well. And overall, just really enjoyed release week as well
Mhm.
as all the pre-release events. It's a really fun set to open. I certainly didn't open as well as some other people did, but still, I managed to crack my first Fable,
Nice. How was that?
an an RF. You know, the fact that it's an RF I don't want to sound entitled at all,
Hmm.
but the fact that it's an RF and the financial value is less than some of the L's that are coming from the set,
Right.
it
Yeah.
just makes it feel a little bit like, yeah, this is great. I'm very thankful for it, but man, it doesn't feel like opening one of those Fable CNCs or what I imagine like a library or something
Right.
or
A
at the
heart or
time.
an eye.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable. They do seem, well, even from outsiders, the Plague Hive kind of felt like a dime a dozen. So I understand what you're saying. It does seem like they kind of have a higher pull rate than, and they probably do have a higher pull rate than the
Hmm.
CFLs. Which, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but people don't want playable fableds. That seems to be usually the chatter that I hear about a fable, is that they don't want playables. But maybe now that they've kind of done this RFCF thing, that maybe they can introduce playable fables when they come down to a reasonable price. I don't know what everybody's definition of a reasonable price is, but maybe it's okay to add that card into, make it better for whatever class or talent it's made for.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no, it's a really fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
I get to strike the achievement of never opened a Fabled off my list. I
Yeah.
think that one's still hanging over you for the time being.
No, it's not. I've opened a few.
Oh, you have? All right.
So yeah,
Well,
sorry.
in that
I,
case,
I
nope.
I have.
You
Just even we were doing. I don't know if you were there. We did an outsiders draft, and I actually pulled a RF Plague Hive.
okay? I
Um,
was not there.
yeah.
In
Okay.
my
Well,
mind, you've never opened a Fable, but I
okay. I
realize I'm
appreciate it.
mistaken.
I opened them early on, probably
Got
before
it.
a lot of people got into the game. I did have a crazy case of Arc one time where I
Yeah.
opened two CNCs, an RF CNC, Storm Striders, and an Eye, and that is my claim to best case that I have.
Wow.
So, but that was 2 years ago, I guess, at this point.
All right. Well,
So,
anything else?
no, I think we can move into maybe the Living Legends announcement.
A few frosty retirements here.
Yep.
Living Legends. So we had Icelander and Young Oldham move out of Blitz, and we had Adult Oldham, Grandfather of Eternity, move out of CC. From my perspective, Shea, I was very excited to see your name on the Icelander Blitz retirement site there. It's a great thing that LSS does just to put all the event winners down and effectively immortalize
Yep.
your name for the duration of the game, which is awesome. And you won with Icelander before Uprising, so there was no Frost Hex, there was no Ice Vault,
Yeah.
or there wasn't even Waning Moon, was there?
Nope. It was Crucible.
Man, that is one scuffed Icelander.
Yeah, I selfishly I kind of wish they had either like the date tracked with the name as well, or maybe the block that the hero was LL'd or that you got points in. Because I do, it was a different time. She definitely did not have the same cards like you said that she did, but we did have access to cards like Snapback that were very powerful at the time, and playing blues. Uh, so I don't know if it's any more of an achievement than when she got more cards in her pool, but definitely being immortalized on a list is something that myself and anybody that achieves that should be proud of. And you can go back and you can look at your name, or you can show it to somebody that's interested. Be like, yeah, at one point in my life, I was, maybe decent at this game. So, and you also are immortalized on Oldham's CC list. Did you also give him points in Blitz or no?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't much of a Oldham player in Blitz. I've always meandered throughout that format, but yeah, like I mentioned on this podcast a few weeks ago, yeah, incredibly thankful that I managed to pull that off in the last moment available to me. And yeah, it honestly made me feel quite emotional. Like I felt that tightening of my throat and your
Mm-hmm.
chest, like reading the story where it sounds like, and they gave him a very nice send off, like almost like a very short novella, or I don't want to say novella, it wasn't that long, but just
Yeah.
a little blurb about how he, Oldham in the lore was going to pass on the torch to the next generation, and it was time for him to hang up his hammer.
Yeah.
And it seemed very appropriate. Like, I don't know if there's too much to look into that. Does that mean we're not going to get another version of Oldham, and the next Elemental Guardian will be another Bravo or Valda or someone else? Like, I don't know how much to look into that, but it was a very fitting, very touching story. And yeah, just a lot of familiar names. Like, the Oldham community in the Purple Discord was surprisingly tight. It
Yeah.
was it was one of the fun channels to hang out in, and
Yeah.
I did appreciate all the memes over the past couple months too. Just people posting their
All the send offs.
all the send offs, the
Yeah.
Viking funerals, the salutes. Yeah, it's been a really fun time, but time to move on. Hey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the next piece of topic we can move into is Worlds was announced happening in Barcelona on November 16th to 19th. Any thoughts on traveling to Barcelona for Worlds?
So, for someone like me, I don't think traveling to Barcelona is in the cards. Shay and I both live on the western side of Canada, and I don't think either of us speak any second languages that are relevant to like, thinking of it from a judge perspective. It would be a tough sell because of the travel costs
Yeah.
and all of that. And, neither of us speak German or Spanish or anything like that, which would give us a leg up in terms of requesting travel stipends and all of that. So I think this is going to be something that, at least speaking for myself, I'm going to, look forward to from the sidelines. Barcelona is an absolutely beautiful city. I've heard. I've never been, but it makes me feel proud that Flesh and Blood's World Championship is going to be in an internationally recognized tier 1 city, S tier. I don't know how
Yeah,
you put this in a term
sure.
that's not cringe. Like, it's it's a lot different than it being hosted in, a smaller community that's maybe not as internationally recognized, right? Like, this is
Mhm.
a top tier city with a lot of great sites, a lot of great things to do. Yeah.
Lots of curb appeal to go
Yeah.
outside of the event itself. Make a vacation of it. I could definitely see a lot of people getting out there for extra time so that they can explore and, um, you know, just visit a beautiful
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of our locals will make it out there. If they do, fingers crossed for them, and we'll see what we can do to rally the troops and support them. But yeah, what a great announcement.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much chatter surrounding Worlds yet. Most people are talking about Vegas and Nats right now.
Yep,
So
yep.
I think we're focused on that right now, even though Worlds isn't that too far after those events. So
Yeah, you better book your tickets now if you're planning to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's much more to go over in that. Do you have anything, Felix?
No, let's
Okay.
move it along.
All right. We don't really have a main topic for this episode per se, but I guess this is probably one of the biggest topics for Felix and I being judges is that there was an update to the comprehensive rules because Dust Till Dawn came out. But one of the most important things that just happened was the policy revamp regarding missed triggers. Felix, can you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I hope people are in some comfy chairs here because policy is a very interesting topic that can get that people can talk a lot about depending on which judge you're talking to. Policy is very interesting to me, and I hope everyone has a comfy chair. But essentially, we are seeing a major shift in philosophy for how mistriggers are handled, and the bulletin that was published by LSS really explains the rationale really well, and we'll link it in the description. But essentially, the shift in philosophy is that we're moving from a prescriptive flowchart kind of way of handling mistriggers to a philosophy which gives the judge more leeway to apply partial fixes. This is something that I'm a big fan of because as the game gets more and more complicated, there's going to be so many more types of triggers that are hard to classify as, this is a detrimental trigger, this is a beneficial trigger. So for this case, let's apply the flowchart procedure for fixing a mistrigger beneficial or mistrigger detrimental. When you look at something like a ponder token, you know, the fact that it says destroy this token makes it detrimental, but the effect is positive. So same thing for a frostbite token. When you destroy it, is it beneficial or detrimental? Which one do you apply? As the game evolves, we're only going to see more and more of these triggers that are complicated. So either we make more and more flowcharts that capture each of these unique circumstances, or you just give the judge the flexibility to make the appropriate fix, given the status of the game. So, all in all, that's the shift in philosophy. I guess just to throw it back to you, Shay, between the two of us, I bet you have fixed a lot more missed triggers than I have, just because you've been judging for so long and for so many tournaments locally. What's your impression of this change?
I'm with you. I like that it makes judging a bit simpler because, like you already touched on that, the game is only going to get more complicated. With your example of Ponder being destroyed and it being a detrimental trigger, right now a lot of triggers feel like they're detrimental the way they're currently described in the rules, when they shouldn't be classified as detrimental. So I like that we're getting rid of that, and then we're streamlining the trigger system to make it a lot more simple. And when we were talking about this earlier, there right now, there was no incentive for an opponent to pick up a miss trigger for their opponent. And so because you can kind of like, what the rules are, I think people can then use the rules to their advantage if they had to. I guess this is maybe a rule sharking scenario, but what the procedure is going to be or what the procedure is likely to be as a player because of this scenario. And now that I think this new policy kind of shaves that down a little bit, and the likely fix is going to be the result that should have happened in the first place. So there is no gaining an advantage that you shouldn't have had in the first place. So I really like that aspect about it. And that's probably my favorite thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and because this is such a big shift philosophically, I completely expect it's going to take some time for the full ramifications of this to be seen and to be understood properly by everyone. And also to make sure that judges everywhere are aware of how other judges are putting in place these fixes, and just to help spread some consistency
Mm-hmm.
and just to make sure everyone's expectations are aligned. Anyone that, for example, picks up on a trigger and expects that their opponent should miss their opportunity to have that beneficial effect, but then is surprised when the appropriate fix by the judge is a rewind to restore the game state, that could initially lead to some disappointment because those expectations are not made clear. There has been a little bit of chatter on Twitter, just about some situations which may have happened recently. I don't know anything about the specific details,
Yeah.
but what I do suspect is that we'll just need some time to make sure everyone understands the intention of the new policy, and just to get used to this new way of handling things.
Yeah. That's what I was going to bring up and ask you about the online chatter regarding that. So you already answered that for me. And the other thing that I like about the article that I do kind of want to touch on is they talk about the may clause in triggers. And it kind of gave me a little insight into the way that developers design the game. So in the specific example was at the beginning of your turn for Final Spring Tunic was you may add an energy counter to the tunic. And I, as a board gamer, I always thought that was a ridiculous clause because I always looked at board games as a video game. So if I'm supposed to have this thing, the video game would automatically give it to me. So I never understood the may clause in something like the tunic. And so this article basically says that there's a couple of design concepts that they're using is they want mandatory triggers, and cards are designed around a mandatory trigger activating, and it's very important to the way that card works, so they don't want that to be missed. But then they have what they call basically a skill check, which is what the tunic is that you may put a counter, and if you don't, then you missed it. And so they want cards that have skill checks, and so it kind of just gave me a bit more of appreciation into design intention in the game.
Yeah. And just to further that, one of the least favorite calls I've had to make as a judge is, there was a call that came up. A Briar player had resolved So Tomorrow as their second non-attack action in a game, and then proceeded to draw a card and put a card back, I forget, on the top or bottom of their deck.
Yep.
And then created an embodiment token because it was their second non-attack action, and their opponent called, okay, like,
Right.
judge, it's a miss trigger. Under the old regime, this is a miss trigger because the window has passed, so it's lost. Your opponent can choose to add it to the stack or not, and it's missed.
It feels, from a non-competitive background, something like that feels silly, that basically three things are happening and I don't get something because I didn't do in the right order. And we didn't even get past a point in the game state where it even shouldn't be recognized at that point. I understand, like you said, the way it was written as rules. But yeah, it always kind of felt weird to be able to be like, nope, you don't get it because you missed it, even though it was sort of still encompassed in that action.
Yeah. And from my perspective, with reading the new policy now, and of course, I still have to be educated as a judge to make sure that the way that I read it now is in alignment with the head judge for whatever event I'm going to be at, or just in line with the broader judge community to make sure that there's some standards being set. But now I understand that I would have the ability to apply a minor rewind just to say there's no new information being gained here. There was no advantage to the player controlling the triggers to missequence this slightly. And I would be able to apply a partial fix that would restore the game state to what it should have been. And of course, there could be an argument that ordering your own triggers properly and not missing the exact windows is a skill.
Is a skill check.
I do understand that, but at the same time, Flesh and Blood is a game where there's so many shortcuts. For example, being attacked and saying take 5, or we shortcut so much. And I mean, Shea, I submitted a script a while ago about this is like a comedy sketch of two people playing a game, going through every single step exhaustively, and it takes like an hour to go through a full turn cycle. Just with all the priority passing and checks and all that. Like, this is a game of shortcuts, and from my personal opinion, and all opinions are my own here, it's like I really want games to be decided by the skill of the players and the strategy choices and the tactics being chosen, not on technicalities, even if testing technicalities is, can be considered a skill as well. But of course, there's always a balance, and there's always going too far in the lenient direction too. So this stuff will take some
I understand
time.
And I think too, one of the things that I don't think I've ever really heard anybody discuss is that when it comes to shortcuts, there's heroes that you can do shortcuts with, and there's heroes that you can't. You sit down against Kano, you can't just be like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm not going to give you a priority window to respond. You have to say, I'm going to attack you with my sword. Would you like to do anything? Because that Kano has instants, but you sit down against I don't know, maybe a Rhinar or somebody who is usually very straight faced, and you can shortcut to be like, no blocks, I'm just going to go straight to D reacts, and usually it's safe. There is always the chance that they have a niche attack reaction or something like that that might you may get kind of burnt on, but for the most part, I would usually try and play to the hero that I'm either playing or who I'm sitting down against. Like today, in our armory, I was playing Swordfish Riptide against Arachne, and we both had a defense reactions for days. She could have attack reactions as well, and it was a very exhaustive match in that manner, always properly passing priority, because I didn't want somebody to get an advantage by shortcutting, because it was very important to sequence each of our turns appropriately, especially because the Arachne had attack reactions, and I didn't want to just go no blocks and throw D reactions and give away what I'm trying to do. I also needed to wait for certain windows. So I think one of the things I would say is, yeah, play to the heroes, whether you need to pass those priority windows or if you can shortcut. But I get sometimes shortcutting can cause a lot of problems and confusion on something like a Codex of Frailty from a ranger, and then all of a sudden the arrows on the combat chain, and you're like, where did this arrow come from? And you just have to kind of talk it through and slow it down a little bit at times as well.
Yeah, was that a sneaky transition into Battle Hardened Cincinnati?
It was a little bit.
Wow.
And
Look at
if we
that.
didn't want to go there, that was totally fine. But it was a thing that happened on stream. I vaguely saw it. I know the casters talked about it, and I guess there was even more about that, but I don't know, so I can't speak on it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to go into the details, but Codex on stream, this was in the finals. The fact that Codex puts whatever you retrieve from the graveyard into your arsenal face down is relevant when you're under the impact of, I believe it was Warmongers, where the player chose War, the Lexi player, and couldn't activate Lexi to flip up that card. So many players just shortcut Codex. They either leave the card face up in Arsenal, forgetting that it has to be turned face down,
Yep.
or they, like you said, put it straight onto the combat chain. So I completely believe that there was absolutely nothing malicious on the part of either player, especially the Lexi player. It's such a common shortcut. But as we go into a new meta, these are the kind of fun things that we're going to start running into. There's all these new interactions, and I mean these cards aren't even new, but
Yeah.
I guess Warmongers is. Scratch that. But things like I Spy and things like Encase that shut off the hero abilities potentially, those are old. So we theoretically have had this type of interaction existing for quite some time, and it's just going to take some time to get used to all of these things again.
Nice. Do you have anything else to add about Battle Hardened Cincinnati?
It was a great tournament to watch. I don't want to harp on the rules things, but man,
Yeah.
the level of production quality and the games, and man, Arcane Icelander winning. I mean, you must have been happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I took inspiration for my Lethbridge PQ Arcane Icelander from Rhea. It was basically her deck list with a couple of meta tweaks and her sideboard, and I found really good success with it. So yeah, they're a good player, and congratulations to Rhea. I did want to touch that. I found some success with their YouTube channel, and even talking to them, I reached out to her and let her know that, hey, I did really well, because she's a content creator. She is on Hit Effect.
On Hit Effect,
yeah, on YouTube. I think that if somebody's a content creator, they do want to hear those positive moments. So I definitely wanted to reach out. And I don't ever want to, not that I think I'll get into the limelight, but I don't ever want to get into the limelight and make it seem like I created some deck that I won a semi-major event with, because I'm not a deck builder like some other people, and I want to give credit where credit is due. So I did want to kind of mention that.
Yeah, and I bet that comment really brightened her day, and it cost you nothing. So just
Hmm.
spreading a little bit of good cheer. It's is always a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Besides that, no, I again just the my closing comment was, man, the production quality of the stream with the Savage Feats team was so good.
Hmm.
I'm really really looking forward to that. I think it was spoiled on the stream that either Ethan or the Savage Feats team will be taking care of the stream for Canadian Nationals, but very, very excited for that as well, of course. That we'll be getting hopefully that level of production quality for our nationals.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if their quality doesn't even improve from this point, Fab's streaming um, life is in great hands already. If they don't ever
Yep.
improve, like what they already have is, I couldn't have asked for a better production, and you get a lot of insight into players' hands and their faces, and even what's going on the table. There's so much information there without even having a great casting team behind them. So yeah, I'm really excited for the future of that.
Okay. Well, like you mentioned at the beginning, we don't really have a main topic after news for today. We've just come off of some pretty awesome interviews.
Hmm.
Um, and we have 4 straight weeks of interviews lined up after this. So this is Shea and I's chance just to relax and talk about some news and just enjoy each other's company, I guess, for for a little bit here.
Yeah.
So not a heck of a lot we want to talk about for a main topic, but we did cover off the last couple weeks of news and the pre-release and the new set release. So why don't we just cap off this episode by a little bit of discussion on video games? And Shay, I have to ask, what have you been playing lately?
Just before the Steam summer sale ended, I picked up Inscription and Outer Wilds. I've really only played a little bit of Inscription. I haven't had a lot of time. I'm not very good at it, even with all my Slay the Spire and Monster Train experience. I'm struggling to get past the second boss. But
Mm-hmm.
from my understanding and my little bit of knowledge into the game, that's only a piece of the game, and the cabin is really where the game shines. So I'm looking forward to uncovering the story that is Inscription. The Outer Wilds, I've played like 20 minutes, and this I weirdly picked this game up off of a Reddit post. I think the title of the Reddit post was in our gaming, and it was something to the effect of, "What video game do you wish you could play again?" or something like that, or that you can't play, or something like that. And basically, all of the top comments were something to the effect of, "I'm sad that I can't experience Outer Wilds for the first time again." Some of the follow-up comments were basically, "Don't look into the game because it'll spoil it," also. So I kind of picked this up on some Reddit comments and zero prior knowledge. Have you had any experience with either of these games, Felix?
Yes. So I love the fact that, and I had no idea that you were going to answer these games before this podcast. I
Yeah.
am genuinely like beaming with happiness right now because let's start with Inscription. What a creepy game. Like I have never been as creeped. I don't play a lot of horror games, like
Yeah.
let's be
Me
honest,
either.
but Inscription, because you don't expect a deck builder roguelike kind of game to have that kind of atmosphere. I'm very used to it being very mechanical, Slay the Spire, I died, let's rerun.
Yep.
Man, that game creeps me out, like
Yep.
especially the first part which you're on.
Hmm.
And the way that it subverts your expectations time and time again is amazing.
Yep.
Like I'm very happy that you're getting to experience that. But man, Outer Wilds is something else. Like Janice and I played it together.
Okay.
Um and yeah, I echo, this is maybe one of the rare times Reddit is correct. Maybe I'm being unfair to Reddit. Just
I don't know. Maybe.
taking some
Maybe
cheap
not.
shots at Reddit here, but
Not hard.
if you want to talk about a game that really immerses you, if you buy in, and this is the critical thing, right? Like you have to buy into a narrative game like this. If you just look at a game like Outer Wilds and you're like, this is stupid, why can't I shoot, where's the
Yeah.
enemies, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get a lot out of Outer Wilds, but I'm even reminded of our interview with Dylan about immersion in a game and the Ludo narrative. Like Outer Wilds blends its gimmick of the cycles resetting with the gameplay, with the reason why everything's going on, and that organic sense of discovery. I'm just gushing about this game because I love it so much. Like we laughed, like Janice and I both cried like as we played because it
Hmm.
was very touching. And yeah, it was an incredible game. I'm so excited that you get to experience it. And yeah, no spoilers. Don't
I
spoil
was
it for
going to say,
yourself.
I can only imagine how hard it is to talk about the game, but try and remain spoiler free off of the top of your head. So I do appreciate that you were
Yeah.
doing that. I have died a couple of times, so I am aware of that part.
Yeah.
But that's about as much as I have. I have like maybe, you know, 45 minutes into the game, so I haven't had a much chance. I'm an awful pilot, so I have a lot of
That's all
learning
right.
how to fly the craft and how it works. But yeah, so I'm playing those two right now. I kind of want to finish both of them
Yeah.
before Starfield comes out.
Okay.
So that's kind of part of why I picked up Outer Wilds, was sort of like a sci-fi prep for Starfield. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get there. How about
Try
yourself? Are you? Oh, sorry.
but before we move on, try playing it with your wife if she's interested.
Okay. I didn't know you could do
Because
co-op.
it's not co-op, but it's
Okay.
just watch while I play
Okay.
because the narrative is so good and you piece it together yourself. Like Dylan mentioned, how the FromSoft games, they don't just give you a huge cinematic and you
Yeah.
see everything happening like a movie in front of you. Outer Wilds is a little bit more fed to you than like Dark Souls because it
Okay.
will give you like snippets of logs and journals and all that
Yeah.
to read. But piecing together the mystery, you don't have to be at the controls to appreciate it.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
like she can help you pick, where do I go? There's 3 different places I can go. Let's go here, or let's go to the water planet. Let's go to this creepy looking plant thing. Like
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of moments of discovery that can touch you whether you're at the controls or watching. We really enjoyed doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about yourself? What are you playing lately?
Man, I mean, I wish I could be experiencing Outer Wilds for the first time, but sadly not. I've been playing Wild Frost lately, so this is a roguelike card game. So it's kind of a trope to say it's like Slay the Spire, but and I imagine that to real fans of the genre, it's very, very akin to saying my card game is like Magic the Gathering, but
Yeah.
um, it's basically committing the same logical fallacies as we've identified earlier. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean it's a card battler game. It has a really really cute aesthetic, and it is incredibly difficult. Like you are losing left, right, and center in ways that I have not experienced,
Yeah.
even in Slay the Spire. But it's a lot of fun. The runs are quick. It is possible to master the game. I know that there's people with like 100 win streaks
Oh,
with
wow.
the maximum difficulty. I have no idea how they're doing it. I'm struggling to beat it at like 2 out of 3 difficulty modifiers.
Is that the one that has like a main character in the deck or something like that?
Yeah, so you start with a character. Man, this sounds like fab. Like you start with a main character that
Yeah.
always starts on the field.
Oh, it does start on the field.
And
Okay.
yeah, and it has a tactical layer where there's some grid spots and your character has a cooldown. So your character might have a cooldown of 3. So every 3 turns your character triggers and attacks.
Okay.
And your opponents are all lined up on the grid and you have cards that you can play out of your hand, like this is a sword slash, it does 2 damage,
Hmm.
or you can play cards that buff the characters that you have on the field. So it's partially managing your deck and your hand and choosing the right cards to play, but it's also managing the cooldowns of your different characters on the field, moving them around so the right ones are taking hits, because you can see what your enemies are going to do telegraphed, just like Slay the Spire. So really fun game. I just haven't fully grasped it yet, so I'm
Yep.
just dying all the time, but I'm having a great time. I'd really recommend it to anyone that's
A fan of the genre.
yeah, exactly. And I mean,
Yeah.
it makes me sad because the game is excellent. Like, it's really good game. Again, really great aesthetics, really cute, great music. I like the game design, and the Steam reviews are like 40% or something, and all of the reviews are like, "This is too hard," and
Really? I didn't know
it
that.
just makes me sad. It
Huh.
makes me sad that people do that.
I briefly
Yeah.
looked into it when I saw it, and I thought there was a lot of hype and excitement around the game. So I was kind of surprised to hear you say that. Less positive reviews.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a shame. This is where I have my boomer moment. I say kids these days don't want to work for their
Yeah.
their games. But no, I don't know what it is. That just kind of irks me because the game is really good. I did get it off a recommendation from actually Reddit again, so another Reddit win.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. And I'm sorry for insulting you earlier, Reddit. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to add for the episode? We've done a pretty good job of filling a nothing episode with almost our usual runtime.
You know, I'm glad that once we say we're going to do a short episode, it's actually a little bit shorter. I am really looking forward to the interviews that we have coming up, and you know, really, if you're still listening here, really appreciate you sticking with us and listening to Shay and I just ramble and chat with each other. If there's a sweet video game recommendation that you have for us, please let us know. I know Shay and I have slightly different tastes, but we also have a lot of overlap. And if there's anything that's similar to one of the Souls games or Diablo for Shay, or for Outer Wilds or Wild Frost or Against the Storm for me, always looking for something else to entertain ourselves with. So you can find us on social media, on YouTube, IP2 Podcast, on Twitter, IP2 Podcast, on Mastodon, IP2 Podcast, at wraith.social. Thank you so much.
In this episode, we'll be discussing our weeks past in Fab, as well as Living Legend announcements, and something to do with the something to do. That's so dumb. Okay.